Going live. Should be going live now. Why? Okay, I am live. Good. Hi. Hope you can hear me, everybody. This is episode 1. Should be less of a shambles than episode 0, but still some shambling. Pretty much guaranteed. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and feel free to get on the chat and ask questions. If you have a question, probably best to preface it with a big capital Q so I can spot it. I'm looking at my laptop, not my laptop, my iPad right now to see what's out there. So anyway, chime in anytime. Now, what's going to happen tonight is an interview guest. We are going to have API's Chief of Investigations, Marcia Barnhart, on, and she is going to be discussing with me one of the cases we worked several years ago, actually more than a decade ago. A really intriguing, interesting, and complicated case, and Marcia will help us work our way through that. And we'll talk a little bit about how the best to approach highly strange cases. Okay, now there's an announcement. I need help with this live stream. I would like a volunteer in the future, or actually a cadre of volunteers, to help do the moderation and Q&A and helping and feeding me questions live. And also, the same cadre of people could also be panelists. What I'm looking to do is put together a panel of typically about 3 people per show who will discuss the topics of the show and also just have the time. You need to be reasonably well informed about the UFO topic, and also have an opinion on things. I'm sure many of you do have opinions, so that shouldn't be a problem for most of you. Anyway, and skeptics are welcome, as always. Now, what we'll be talking about in this episode, this case, it has a number. It's called 12-058. The 12 means it was, we opened the case in 2012. The witness in this case, we're just going to call him the witness, is somebody we would call an experiencer. And I still, to this day, do not really know what to make of experiencers. But they are people who have a lot of anomalous memories. That's one way to put it. They would say anomalous experiences. The best of them, and I think this particular witness was one of the best of them, don't pretend to have a pat answer for what is happening to them or why. They have more questions than answers. And I really appreciate about this young fellow. He never really imposed an interpretation on his experiences, but his experiences were very real to him and sometimes quite emotional. So I'm going to bring Marcia on, and she's going to introduce the case, and then we're going to play a little video that she produced that summarizes the case. Well, we won't play the whole video. We'll just play about half of it, and then we'll talk some more. So, some really good audio clips for you. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to bring Marcia in. Marcia, can you hear me? You there, Marcia?
Yeah.
Okay, Marcia, tell me about this case. Let's get it. Let's set the table.
All right. Now you're cutting in and out for me, Paul. So you give me a hand signal if you lose me, okay? And
Okay.
I'll start over.
Okay.
Because there's some loss.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Oh, you're you are presently frozen. Are you there?
Occurred the last week.
Okay, can you start over, Marcia? We lost you for a little bit there.
Okay. This case 12-058, we began investigating.
Mm-hmm. And we lost her again.
Case from MUFON. The witness had made a MUFON report, but MUFON never followed up on it. Gave it to Antonio, and Antonio Paris. The case details are this. The witness has had multiple interactions over a long period of time since childhood with what he feels are alien or multi-dimensional beings. He's seen UFOs on several occasions and experienced odd dreams and other unusual phenomena. These interactions include having been surrounded in a loving way, small grays, seeing UFOs in the sky on several occasions, being seduced in a dreamlike state by what looked like some girls, but he also realized at the time there was something not right about this dream. And he also awoke from a dream and smelled strong patchouli oil odor and saw a huge pale white gray being that he couldn't bring himself to look at in the face. So he has had a lifetime of strange encounters, anomalous experiences, and the one we covered was this event that occurred on 30 July 2011. And now, Paul, you could play that case synopsis video.
Okay. We're going to roll the case synopsis video in just a second here. Maybe bring it up to where it's visible. And bring it to where it's not behind things. Okay, here we go. We'll play about half of it. And
later, I had gone to bed, everything from what I knew seemed, like a normal night. I woke up that morning, the next morning I was in the bath, looked down at my left arm, and I saw maybe a 2 millimeter long metal protruding object sticking out of my left arm, in my forearm. And I actually pulled it out. A small drop of blood came out of the arm, and without thinking about it, I nearly was going to throw it away in the trash, but something looked strange about it. It looked almost like an omega sign symbol, was the shape of it. It was, very thin, pretty fragile type object. And so I had my father look at it, who, is a very skeptical person, and said that he thought it was maybe shaving off of the railing, on the balcony. But the balcony, the shape, it was that they were colored white. This object was gray to black, like more of a matte color, like a gunmetal color to it. It looked nothing like that, And so I thought it was strange, and I made the comment to him that I wanted to have this analyzed, So my mom had just gone to the grocery store that day and had bought brand new Ziploc bags. And so I got a Ziploc bag and I put the object in it, and I put the Ziploc baggie inside of my hat. So what I did is I put the bag underneath my wallet and my keys and put it on the suitcase that was on the floor. So I had it in like a secure spot, and I went to bed. So when I woke up the next morning, I just had the feeling to look at it. I was interested in it, so I decided to look at it again. And when I proceeded to get the bag out of my hat, which was in the exact same spot as I put it, mind you, very unusual hole on the one corner, end of the bag, and the object was nowhere to be found. So from there I was wondering, maybe someone had tampered with it or taken it, so I went around and I asked my sister and my mom and my father, and they kind of looked at me with glazed eyes, wondering what I'm talking about. They did not do it, and nor did anyone come in my room. I'm a pretty light sleeper generally, so no one came in my room and messed with it, nor would have any reason to. So it was just gone,
Now, did anything unusual happen the night before you woke up?
Actually, it was the following night is when something strange, very strange happened, actually. I had a very vivid encounter with a blue-gray, fuzzy, because that's all I can describe it as. It had hair all over its body, entity was kneeling down on the floor next to me. It was pretty small, only maybe 3 feet tall, but it was stocky. It was not really skinny or really, really big, but it was, a stocky type shape to it. And I didn't really see any nose or anything like that, but I remember it talking to me. But it's strange because I don't remember clearly a voice, but I understood what it was saying to me, and I remember it telling me something, completely mind-boggling. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. I mean, it like shattered my reality. I remember it specifically saying that when I woke up, I would forget what it told me. And that's exactly what happened. I remember for maybe 10, 15 seconds when I woke up, I could not believe what I heard, and then all of a sudden I just could not remember it anymore at all.
Now, had you put the artifact that you found in your arm and this visit or this dream put together at all?
I kind of did, because it just seemed very coincidental that I would have such a vivid experience or dream or encounter, and then have this bag incident that happened the day before. Just seems a little too coincidental for me.
Okay. I think we'll pause that there. And temporary. Now we have some really good audio clips that I'd like to play. And Marcia, you didn't just interview this guy. You interviewed his father, right?
Several people, yeah. Now his father.
Oh, we've lost Marcia. Well, I'm going to go ahead and play the first clip. This is
pretty bright. And the doctor, his father, lived.
Okay. Marcia's breaking up again. Let me just go ahead and play the father, the first clip for the father in Marcia's interview. And let's see. That didn't help, did it? Okay, here we go.
Talking with me, you would say that your son is of sound mind. Does he ordinarily stretch the truth or make exaggerated claims?
No, that's the only thing he ever said to me about this thing he showed me. I think he's seen one time he saw something he's convinced it was, and he says his friend saw it, he's convinced was some sort of craft that didn't behave like a normal craft. And I said, well, son, you can't, was it night? I said, you can't really tell things can be moving towards you when you think they're moving sideways or away. So it's hard to, make any conclusions, but that's the only other thing.
Okay. Now, this is the father talking about the object itself.
Yeah, that clip goes to the witness's veracity.
Right.
He's not prone to exaggerate or make things up. The other clip talks about the father's recollection.
Okay.
Can you tell me what you
That
remember
he
of it?
showed me this little sliver of something that he said he found in his arm, and said, well, could be just a little sliver of metal from a railing or something. I didn't do it. Okay. And then they put it in some little plastic bag. And then the next day it was forgotten whether there was a hole in the bag or something. Look, it's gone. I said, well, maybe it's sitting in the sun and it got hot and melted through it, and that's about my extent of involvement with it.
Had he told you about experiences or dreams that he had regarding the that whole episode?
He has said that he has dreams of being abducted and it really happened or something. And I just think, son, it's just an intense dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually don't listen very carefully because I'm not a big believer in all that stuff.
Now, can you tell me again, did you look at that, the sliver of metal? Do you remember what it looked like? Can you give me any characteristics of it?
I can't say for sure. I remember it's been a couple of years. As I recall, I told him that it could be something from an iron railing because I think it was shit-colored, sort of iron-colored. It wasn't. I don't recall it looking like titanium or any fancy metal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even sure it was metal because I didn't really go into it any further with him.
So you couldn't tell if it had any particular shape?
It was pointy.
Uh-huh.
But I don't. Too small for me to, I don't have glasses on, so.
Okay, that was the second clip of the father describing his memory of the object.
The father wasn't so much dismissive of it as he just he really felt these were vivid dreams, and I think the witness also felt that he was having very vivid dreams, but there was something different in the there was something different about the dreams that were more than just dreams. That's a not experience for people that are having ongoing encounters of some sort. It's a dreamlike state, but there's something about it that is different. And they know it when they wake up, and they know it when they're encountering it.
Right. Okay.
And that's why I think the father felt that they were dreams.
Shall we play this clip about a UFO sighting with his friend?
Yeah. Say first the witnesses sighting.
Okay.
3 other people with me. We were out on the balcony, and I was talking on the phone. I happened to look up, and there was 2 black, like gunmetal black objects, completely silent, 200 feet over my head. Like they were not far up in the sky. And I caught the back end, and it looked like a scoop cut out of the back end of it, and they were kind of like diamond shaped. And 10 minutes later, the objects came streaking down from the sky. Like they looked like meteors, and I was like, look at that. And my friend Matt's like, they're meteors. And as soon as he said they're meteors, they went from this angle and took like a complete 90-degree turn. And then that's not the only thing. They crossed the entire horizon from like north to south, like in an instant almost, like seconds.
Okay. So that's some anomalous movement, not to mention the description. Okay. And then there's another clip about the same.
Yeah, his friend then. I interviewed his friend, one of the people who was there, and corroborated that sighting.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I can get this one to play.
There was 2 objects that were about what you would view as, a star in shape and size was moving across the atmosphere at a speed, that was just unexplainable. They weren't moving in a direct manner. It was like they were almost playing tag with one another. And the way that they sped up, stopped, and changed directions. Have you ever seen a fish swim? How, they slow up and then they speed up and then they slow down and they speed up? It was almost like that. These two objects, were able to cross the entire night sky from as far as you could see to the left to the right in, a matter of seconds. I mean, across the, the outer atmosphere, and being that far away, I mean, it was just outrageous. It's beyond words.
Okay, that's all of that one. Okay,
That's important because it's corroboration and it shows that the witness.
yeah. Actually, that kind of corroboration is not that common. Even in, even sometimes spouses will not corroborate each other.
Pardon me?
Yeah. Lots of cases where someone has said, there was another person there, and we try to contact the other person, and they won't talk to us. So this was a good. Let's see. Now I think I want to talk about the evidence that the witness provided to us, which was a snack bag, and the bag had a hole in it that was comparable in size to the size that described. It was a bag in the lower left-hand corner. And my role in this investigation was to take that bag and examine it as closely as I knew how. Now, I'll come right out and say I'm not a forensic scientist. I don't have any training in that. But I did what I could. And my objective was to duplicate the damage in the bag, and I wanted to see how would I do that if I wanted to just remove this thing from the bag. If I try various methods, is it going to look like that? And I tried a lot of different things. I tried all the obvious things like tearing it and cutting it and burning it with a butane lighter, and I did other things, ripping it across just with force. And none of those things looked at all like what we had. So let me show you this clip, and I will then maybe talk a little bit more about what I did there. And so let's see. We want the QuickTime screen. All right. And let's play. It is actually a hole. It's not just a tear. There's a wrinkle. There is a hole there. It's about a centimeter. We have photographs of it that you can see its size. It's roughly crescent shaped. I'll see the actual opening itself. I'm going to try to get it better focused. That's what it looks like. You notice that right at the opening, the plastic is very finely puckered. And then right there is where the damage is. Right there. Now I'm going to zoom in. You can see there's little bits of debris. We don't know exactly what the source is, and a small bit of discoloration, which shows up much better under enhancement. And little trace bits of discoloration right at the opening.
which might be, we speculate, from the witness himself.
Trying to get in focus there.
So I'm going to have to be a little bit ambivalent about what we can conclude so far. I would say that I would strongly leaning towards the conclusion that the damage to the evidence was caused by something hot on the inside that heated up quickly and caused the hole in the bag. I'm not able to determine what happened to the object that had been placed in the bag earlier. There doesn't seem to be very much evidence of that. There is some evidence on some of the photomicrographs of some debris or residue that could be anything. Some of them appear to have a reddish color. There is some speculation that some of the witnesses' blood could be there, but right now it's speculation. We haven't got any evidence of blood. Since the evidence is more than a year old and could have possibly been exposed to high heat, I wouldn't expect to find any blood cells per se. There could be a little hemoglobin left over. We might be able to find that out with the test. However, the amounts are very, very small that we're talking about. The why questions here that one wants to ask, I can't answer those questions. I'm not sure properly why this object would be removed, how it, why the particular method of removal, as opposed to just simply taking the bag while the witness slept. None of that we can hope to answer at this point. Those are bigger questions. What we can, I think, reasonably conclude is that that the damage to the bag was caused by something other than someone simply cutting the bag open or tearing the bag open. If you simply wanted to remove the object from the bag, you would open the bag at the opening and reach in and grab the object. So we have a very interesting case here. I think there's some hope we can further corroborate the witness's testimony. And that's about as far as we can go. I think beyond that, we need more information that right now we don't have.
Okay, yeah, well, let me, it may not be clear from this why I thought it was high heat. And the reason I said that was because I had done another experiment where what I did is I took several snack bags and tried to destroy them in the same way that their evidence was. What I didn't add, I couldn't really get anything like what we had there in that baggie. So I tried an experiment where I wanted to expose it to enough heat to melt plastic for a very short period of time. And I came up with a way of dropping hot solder, just about hot enough to melt plastic, that kind of plastic, a little bit hotter than that actually. And I had a soldering iron, a very, conventional sort of thing, and some solder. And I held the bag open and dropped solder into it. And that was the closest match I got to the solder hit the bag, melted through it, and dropped to the workbench. And that was the closest match I got to the damage we saw. So I concluded that the most likely scenario was that it was exposed to heat sufficient to melt the plastic for a short period of time. What happened to that wire-like object? I can't say. He said he looked for it, couldn't find it. But it was small. Maybe it just got lost. Or maybe it wasn't there. We don't know. So, gosh, I wish we could come up with a more pat conclusion with a more entertaining narrative, but it's not there based on the evidence. What we do have, I think, is enough to say he wasn't lying about. Well, we know he wasn't lying about the object itself. Other people saw it. And it was, he claims, and he's quite certain, that he had it in the bag when he went to bed that night. And then it was gone in the morning. If we assume that's correct, then I think we have him corroborated pretty well, that he didn't just take it out of the bag and to pull a hoax on us or something. So why did it disappear? Mystery, unsolved, probably always going to be unsolved. Well, there was a hole there. There was a hole. Yeah. And it was probably big enough for the object to fall out of there, but only just. Yeah, well, there was an opening. It's impossible to determine if it was opening big enough for the object to be extracted through. But it was very close in size to what was described. He never measured it or photographed it when he had it. Well, back in 2011, not everybody had a good picture phone, good camera phone. So well, I mean, you could do that with electromagnetic waves if you can control them carefully enough. One thing I didn't do because I didn't want to risk the damage, or I didn't think it was safe, was to put a similar type of situation in a microwave oven. I thought about doing that, but I couldn't find a microwave oven I was willing to damage. So I didn't do that, but I think that it could have been that the object was simply vaporized, and that may explain some of the residue. And it was just simply annihilated by heat. But then you have to find a source of microwaves or some other type of radiation that would cause that. It certainly wasn't there, from an ordinary microwave transmitter in his room. So I don't know how that works. But it's we just don't have a good answer. Yeah, it is an unsolved mystery. Assuming a couple of things, assuming that it really was in the bag when he put it in by his bedside and hadn't been lost earlier that day. I don't think it's plausible that it got heated up in the sun enough to melt through the bag. That would have caused a different kind of damage. And he almost certainly would have noticed it. It would have, like stuck to the plastic, because it wasn't hot enough to melt metal. But of course, we don't really know that it was metal. So, it was, yeah. It could have been made out of something other than metal, but we'll never know. He didn't weigh it. He didn't photograph it. He didn't, he didn't put a magnet near it to see if it moved, that sort of thing. That would have been a lot more interesting investigation to actually look at the thing itself. But we're stuck with that. But this is, I would call this physical evidence of physical evidence. Yeah. I think I've lost Marcia again. I lost you. Anyway, yeah, now we had, after we interviewed him, he began a relationship with a young lady, and we wanted to play a couple of audio clips about that, about her experiences. And so let's go ahead and do that.
This is him talking about what she's relayed to him.
Right. Okay. This is entity, the gray entity in room. Is that what we're looking for?
That was the witness's experience.
Oh, okay. And then there's one with a girlfriend.
Yeah, there's two that he relays about.
Girlfriend's lifetime experience, girlfriend's early experience?
Yeah.
Well, let's play gray entity in the room first.
Okay.
Ever since I was little, I've been having weird events, things like that in my house when I was little. I slept on my mother's floor till I was 13 or 14. Last year sometime, I was having a dream. I was in with some girls that I knew, and the next thing I know, I was thrust into a sexual situation with a girl, but something felt odd about it, and I kept saying in my head, no, I don't want to, something's odd about this, and the next thing I know, I'm standing in my room, and I was awake, but I felt drugged, and there was some tall creature standing in the room, and I could smell it. It smelled like petroleum oil and musk and chemicals, and I remember I couldn't look it in the face, and I was staring at its hands, and its hands were I've never seen hands that big before, and it was a pale white color, almost a creamy gray, I could not look it in the face though, and I started getting really scared, and then I got the feeling, the typical feeling where you start calming down, and then the next thing I know, I am back in my bed again and awake, and I could still smell the smell in my room. But I remember vividly standing in my room in front of my bed, and this thing is standing right in front of me.
Okay. And now onto the girlfriend's experiences. Let's see.
She's slowly telling me more and more. She's kept a lot of stuff I've found out secret. She's afraid of ridicule and people thinking her crazy, and she doesn't want people knowing her business and all.
Right.
But I told her I would, tell you.
Right.
But apparently the first incident, she lived in El Paso, Texas, for a good portion of her childhood, and she lived near Fort Bliss. And there was an abandoned abandoned warehouse or something across the street. And for some reason, she said she would always go play there by herself. And she said one time she was there, she had up, and there's a big object over top of her. It was circular, and it had it was triangular and circles on 4 points. And she said a big, huge beam of light came and hit her. And she said it was really weird because it was she was there, but she was also on the ground too. She was in the spaceship, but yes, her body was on the ground You know, it like made
Uh-huh.
me think of like them taking her consciousness or something.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
And here's something even weirder, Marcia. She had dreams of like symbols in her mind all the time.
Uh-huh.
And she wrote the symbols down, and they're the same frickin' symbols that were on the spaceship at Rendlesham Forest. And she had no knowledge of this whatsoever. Like she's never seen them or anything. And we were randomly pulling up pictures to see if we could find out what they were. And the only difference is they're upside down when she drew them, as opposed to on the ship. Every single one of them is upside down the other way, but they're identical.
Okay. And now there's one more. This is 3 minutes long.
She went to bed. No marks were on her. Woke up in the morning, found that she had these odd, 3 circles in a triangle shape, 3 on each. She had some weird dreams about seeing some beings. She was flying in the dream, getting chased by creatures that were on all fours, basically, and like ran like dogs almost. And she ended up into this cabin or some sort with her and her sister and her father and her other sister, and she was hiding under the bed. And then next thing she knows, the beings pulled her out, and it was very, completely vivid, and one was, the typical gray color, but they was taller. Said they've had red eyes throughout her entire life. She's had many experiences. The other one was a gold color. She said it was less attractive. But apparently they were like talking to her, and I didn't find this out till later, but she was hesitant to tell me. But she's been talking to them all her life, basically. Like having conversations and asking questions and things, and she remembers a lot of it. And I come to find out that the marks on her side attributed to the being saying that she was going to get pregnant, and they took this wand-like device, she said. They had 2 of them and plugged it on both her sides. And then they said blue moon or something. They said the next blue moon or something. She didn't really understand the context of what they were saying, but they kept repeating it. And apparently when she was 18 and she had her son young, 2 months prior to getting pregnant with him, she had the same thing happen, where those beings came and they, used the wand-type device and placed it on both her hips. And then 2 months later, lo and behold, she was pregnant. Wow. And she said this was the exact same scenario again, and it was saying that it wanted her to have a baby and all this stuff. And recently, we've been feeling compelled to try to have a baby, which is crazy to me, but for some reason it feels right, And then this is something else, is her son has been experiencing stuff since he was little too, she said, but we don't talk to him about it because apparently she says that she's found him in her bedroom standing there and he's talking to someone, and when she kind of prodded him to talk to her about who he's talking to, he said those people or whatever, and he said, Mom, they're gray and they have red eyes, and Jody's never talked about it to him about it. And then she said she asked him the next day what he was sleepwalking about. He didn't remember any of it. He doesn't remember that he's seen him or anything. She said it's happened multiple times too with him.
Okay, that's the last clip. So Marcia, did we learn anything from this?
Life is weird.
Life is imagine? Weirder than we can imagine? Yeah. For me, it was my first encounter with a real high strangeness experiencer, who seems, as you noted, completely sincere and has, pretty much has his life together. He's not in an institution or anything like that. His father thinks he's credible. And I learned, don't dismiss these things out of hand. What they mean, we don't know. But we can't just say, oh, obviously a nutcase, be gone. First of all, you and I are not qualified to diagnose psychological issues. I'm not sure there are any psychological issues, even if I could diagnose them. So, but he was. I met him briefly. You might remember you and myself and Antonio and one other person went out to meet him in 2012, and I came away thinking he's telling the truth. What he remembers, when he says he remembers. So, and for that reason, when we get these kinds of cases, which is not very often, but we do get them, I don't just, I want to have a chat with a person and see if they can give me that same kind of feeling that, that they're being sincere with us. And they're not. We do get people you don't get a good feeling from. You get the impression that every little thing that happens, they interpret it according to some narrative that they've adopted. Others, you just can't be sure. So, if I'd like to ask people who are listening to this, if you know of similar cases, by all means, please get in touch and we'll talk about it. If particularly if it's you, if it's a first person, I can't promise you, as he clearly demonstrates, that we can give you the answer to what happened. We were never able to give this witness an answer to what happened to him or his girlfriend or anyone else. But we want to compare notes and see what we can learn. That's really, we approach every case with curiosity and with the willingness to learn something new. So, you have any final thoughts on this, Marcia?
Yeah, I found that much of what he related and much of what he related about what happened to his girlfriend were so similar to a multitude of other people who were coming forward of having had similar experiences. And it was almost like an epidemic of people who had gone through the same type of things. The 80s and the 90s and 2000s, there was certainly the 80s and 90s, there was an awful lot of abductee type of stories. And it was almost like a period of time this was happening heavily to people, or it had always been happening and people were allowed to remember and relate it. But what he was talking about was almost exactly what other people in the Baltimore area experiencers group were relating. And the reason they got together was because they had so many similar experiences and they liked to talk to one another because within that group they didn't feel crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we often have people saying, I'll bet you think I'm crazy when they talk to us, right? And the answer is no, we don't. And we'll listen. So anyway, thank you, Marcia. It's been fun reliving this really great, strange and perplexing case. And fortunately, we don't have, most of our cases are a lot easier than this one. And you just closed one as identified just the other day. So, which is, we'll stay in touch, and we'll do more deep dives into cases like this on these episodes. Maybe not every single time, but frequently. And so, if you have any questions, I don't see any questions now in the chat. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. You can contact us at our website, reportaufo.org. your sighting, and also just contact us with questions or comments or anything else. And so thanks, Marcia, and feel free to stay on the live stream if you want to listen to the rest of it, or have a good night. And okay. Now, a couple more things before I go. One is I wanted to talk briefly, again, just to reiterate, looking for help with this live stream. We want to make it interesting and fun, and have a lot of variety. And one of the varieties would be special guests, and I'm working on that. Another one would be panel. And if you are interested in being on one of the panels, please get in touch. And I'm also going to do occasionally a field investigator's backpack segment. I'm not going to do one tonight. We're going to wrap this up pretty soon. But the next one I'm going to do is, you see that, is tripods and monopods. And I'm going to try to convince you to leave your tripod at home. But there are some use cases, and we'll talk about that. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. And this video will be available indefinitely on YouTube. And we would encourage you to contact us and get involved. And by the way, yes, we are looking for more help with our case investigations and other matters in the area of phenomena investigations. So thanks a lot for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. And end stream.